Okay, well, good to see everyone. Um, just a real short program. It's all up here. Any questions? No, let me share my screen and we'll see what we can get going here. Uh, now that, are you seeing a white screen with figures on it?
Yes.
Says Doug laptop at the top.
Yep.
Okay. Well, I did I've been organizing some things today and decided to do a search. And you can see that over here on my computer, all the photos I have, 254 gigabytes of over 114,000 individual photos in almost 1,900 different folders. So this is not something I just began yesterday and instantly had a plan. This has evolved and come about through probably 20 years now of using a computer. So move to the next column, you can see what I call train photos. You can see that's 127 gigabytes, but it's still 71,000 plus files. So that means I have 71,000 plus train photos on my computer that ideally I should be able to find and show anyone. But that's part of the problem we all experience. Now this got started when Greg asked me, a month or two ago to share how I organize things and keep track of it. And I think it was related to the depot photos. And it's become a sweet spot for me to find and save photos of depots in Iowa. And you can see I have over 3,000 of those now. And I've spent the last couple of days, well, yesterday, since I thought of this program, of reorganizing them into 21 folders. Now that's just the photos on my computer. I also have under train data, this would be Word documents, PDFs, maps, all that other type of stuff. And there's also photos in here too that I keep finding. So you can see I have almost 40,000 files there of related train information. Probably far more than what I wanted to know. So let's get out of this screen and let's go to, all right, this is my photo directory on my computer. And you can see I got a variety of folders up here, and then there's some individual stuff that sometimes just gets saved, and every once in a while, there's a train related photo just in the main photo directory. This is a flat car that I scratched built. For my NMRA freight car certificate that got me my MMR. And that somehow seems to be residing here in this main folder where there's some, well, here's some things that I think, Ron, what was a couple weeks ago, Ron, you were asking about Mack trucks. And I did a couple of quick scans of stuff and just dumped it all in here. Oh, that's a concert in the neighborhood. You don't need to see that. Let's see. I don't have this into a fancy PowerPoint. I'm just going to play it and we'll see where my mind goes tonight with some of this stuff. But you'll notice in all these folders here, I've got one that is labeled train pictures. And here resides all my train photos. And here you can see I have directory after directory after directory. At the top a couple layers, these are all by date. And what these are is these tend to be photos that I have taken and my camera just saves them by date. And this here happens to be a coal shed in Keosauqua, Iowa, where they're in the process of getting moved from its original location to a private residence. And so I went down one day and took a bunch of pictures of it being moved. This was built by the CB&Q. It sat on that spot at one time. But that's, so I got pictures on a coal shed. When I travel, here's a bunch of photos I took in California one year on a trip. We got on a bus and we operated trains, and we just had this was to be the national convention out there. I come down here, let's see, those are all, we don't want to see all those. Let's move down here. I sort by categories a lot of times. and you can start seeing through here. I've got like railroads. Here's Adjutant Peak of Santa Fe. So if I open this folder up, it is full of Santa Fe related photographs. And there's probably depot photos in here, but not from particularly for Iowa, because I kept the Iowa one separate. But here's a subfolder that's just on horse cars, which has got an article about the Santa Fe cars, passenger cars used for transporting race horses, basically, or very high prized, stallions or whatever. So I can bore you to death with things like this. So feel free to ask questions whenever you want. Here's another photo subdirectory. This is on interior of a Santa Fe stock car and what it looked like. I don't know why is it doing that. Because I'm using, what am I using? I'm using InfantView as my photo program at the moment.
Hey,
You
Doug,
want to know what? Yes.
would you go back one and if you can, go back to the other picture of the stock car? If you can't, that's all right.
This one right here.
Yeah. I don't know how many people know what that other bar is, but you and I know what it is.
Yeah.
But I don't know if anybody wants to chime in, but that's the bull bar, right?
That is correct. And you can see the chain hanging here that it's fastened to. And what this is for is so that when you were working this car and had to slide that door open, this bar prevented the livestock from exiting the car instantly. And so it was put in place before the door was closed. And then when the door got opened, all those frightened animals inside didn't rush the door and get out instantly. You had a chance to get them a little bit controlled. When the car was empty, not in use, the bar on the CB&Q particularly, they had brackets on the exterior of the car where that bar would ride, but it always was attached with the chain so it didn't disappear. So,
And Doug,
yes.
I'd add one thing. If you think about it, the door is in such a way, if you get one of these big animals pushing on it, you push that door right straight out. So by putting that bar in there, it protects the door.
Yes, good point. Yeah, so.
Micro detail
Thank you.
question is, are those interior boards actually lag screwed to the bracing?
What they would be typically would be carriage bolts.
Carriage bolts?
Yeah, where you would have that slight concave head that sinks down into the wood.
Okay.
You don't have any sharp edges.
So those were through bolts then?
Yes. And
Okay.
then the nuts would be on the outside.
Okay, thank you.
But you would have a smooth edge. You can see one right here. It's just a smooth round head. And it's what typical would be a carriage bolt, which is a round head with a typical square nut underneath that round head. So it
won't spin.
The wood or pull into the iron and not turn as you're tightening it on the other side. So, all right, I don't know if this program it does not like this next photo. I wonder what that is. Let's see that's because it's a PDF. How did a PDF get in my photo files? But the PDF that's here is a 2-page brochure put out by the Santa Fe on painting, cleaning, fumigating, and sanitation of stock cars, and gives you some basic general. Here's the 2 pages that refer specifically to stock cars, but it's somehow that should be in the data file, not the photo file. Oh wow. But we can go through the rest of these photos, and you can see just the interior. Now here's an interesting one that. One of their early designs with the feed bunks inside and boxes for containing feed hay on top of the car, where they were trying to move livestock before the 1906 28-hour law went into effect. This proved not to be effective, but it gives you a good idea of what the interior of the car looked like. So,
Just a comment on that. Sorry to butt in all the time, but
no, go ahead.
the reason those did not prove satisfactory is they got too many cinders in from the steam engines, you know, and so that didn't work with feeding the cattle and stuff. So that's why they got rid of them.
Mhm. So, and just, you know, stock cars are one of my things. Here you can see some, that last one we looked at looked like an iron steel pipe. This is a more traditional wood bull bar. You can see it's on both sides of the car. So, and here is a support bracket that is for a second deck. This car was a double deck car. You can see the wood block put in here, the steel support there. So here we can see a divider gate. These were often used when they were transporting different livestock in the same car. Say a farmer was wanting to move from one place to another, he would have his dairy cows on one end and his hogs on the other end, or something like that. So they would use these gates. There's the interior of a double deck car with a convertible deck. So it's got this chain lifting mechanism. You had a crank on the outside on one side of the car would crank up and pull these two chains would lift this whole floor up against the roof. So you could put cattle in there. If you lowered it down, you could put hogs and sheep on both levels. So again, more than you want to know about stock cars, you know what, it's my program tonight, so bear with me. Here you can see a little bit better picture of those carriage bull heads.
Thank
The
you.
rounded head.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's the end of that folder. Let's see. We'll close out of here and go back to train pictures, because that gives you an idea. You know, I've got stuff. Now here's models from a friend of mine. Here's a folder on A and B cabooses, that, you know, the parts and how to build them and that type of thing. Pictures that I've taken. But let's jump down to. You can see these are all in alphabetical order, but we'll come to Iowa depots. As you can see, I've got 21 different folders in here. And right at the moment, my computer is still syncing up with my OneDrive online. And that's why, because I was shifting stuff around today. Now I have pictures in here that I'm not, some of them are not related to a depot per se, such as here's a bridge at Albia, which I'm assuming that could be an MS&L train, it could be a CB&Q train, or it could be a Wabash train coming in Albia, because I do not know the location of that bridge. So I can't put it in a particular railroad file because I don't know which railroad it is. So it's still writing in just the general. We have here, okay, here's one that if we blow it up, we've got a grain elevator, got a depot there in the distance, an outhouse, and then down it says depot and elevators. I don't know if that says Ardale or what. And so I've got it labeled as Ardale, Iowa, because that's what I thought it was. And there was a Ardale in the Chicago Northwestern. But then when I call up Ardale, Chicago Northwestern Depot, it doesn't, the pictures don't have this bump out on the roof. So I don't know where this photo was taken. You recognize it, Ron?
No, I don't know about this.
So I have a few of these that are mislabeled or unknown. You run into that a lot of times. I also got things like Belknap. There was a crossing here, so I don't know which railroad this depot was. And I've looked it up, but I haven't figured it out yet. I don't have anything to compare to. There's another photo of Belknap with a different depot and a tower. I think this is Great Western by the design here, but I can't swear to it. So I'll get it figured out someday. It's not a big concern right at the moment. And then of course you run into things like this is the Union Depot in Cedar Rapids, used by several different railroads. So I can't label it for one specific railroad, so it just sits here in this main file as the Union Depot. And I've got You know, most of my photos of the depot I got labeled for Chicago Northwestern, but because the BCRN came through here and others, it's just a hodgepodge of things. So,
I mean, that would be a super challenge to model that depot. Wow.
well, let's go into Chicago Northwestern here, and let's go to. We were looking at Cedar Rapids. Let's see what I got for Cedar Rapids in here. If I have anything. Let's see, Cedar Rapids. You got to learn how to spell to do all this. Okay, here is the first Northwestern depot in Cedar Rapids. Just got this one last weekend, but you can see is a very typical two-story freight house out to one end. Then they went and built this Union Depot in downtown Cedar Rapids. And this is an early postcard. There's a photo, you know, looks like they're having a ball game or sitting on the grass out in front. Here's another on shot without all the trees. There you get a little bit broader spectrum of what was there with the passenger shelters. Yeah, but you're right, it would be a complex depot to build. Here's a close-up where you can see some of the details. Let's see if we can blow this. This one's a fairly large, you know, look at that. You know, you get the tile roof, you got fancy brickwork, you've got probably metal roofing here on these two turrets. You got, look at that tower with its peaks and the chimneys on the end. Yeah, this was quite an elaborate building. So,
Doug,
yes.
as I remember that building, it's set north and south in position, which means that the Northwestern must have backed into the building because they're an east-west in that area. Am I right or am I forgot?
No, I think you're confused because the tracks ran in front of the building, and it was a through train. They rerouted through Cedar Rapids at one time. Right across the tracks with the BCRN building that sat on the
Yes.
what I consider the northwest corner of that area.
It may
Cedar
still be
Rapids
there.
sits on a river. It's hard to say what direction it was.
Well, that's true. But you know, the Northwestern's passenger line goes by Quaker Oats,
Yes.
and the depot was south of that. But I guess what the Northwestern must have came by the depot and then made a left-hand turn and went by Quaker Oats and then went on west. I guess that's the way it was.
Yeah, because the main line is on the south edge of Cedar Rapids where the Beverly Yard is. But
Well, that was the freight.
original main
That's the freight part of it. The passenger part went to the north side.
Yes, the original main line came up through town, crossed river near Quaker Oats, and then went back out. And then when they decided to streamline operations, they moved all the freight operations to the south side of town, and just kept, because of the tie-ins with this depot, you know, the big magnificent building shared with several railroads. Here's an interior photo of that depot. And here, you know, somebody's got a postcard for sale. And they just, you know, I've accumulated a lot of photos of the Cedar Rapids Depot. Now, you raise a good point that, let me go to another source I use a lot when I'm, you know, trying to figure out photos. I go to Google Maps. Many of us are familiar with that. As you can see, Cedar Rapids is not a north-south town. It's an east-west. It's on an angle, because let's go to the satellite view here. Do you remember exactly where that depot was, Ron?
I think it's between First and Third Avenue.
Okay, there's First Avenue, and all the Northwestern and Cedar and Milwaukee were all up in this area.
Yeah,
Yeah, the depot ran at an angle somewhere along in here.
we're losing your audio sometimes.
Are we? Well, I got a microphone here. I can pull it in closer.
Cedar
Now,
Rapids
you remember where the
changed so drastically
I
after they
know.
put the interstate in.
Yes. If I can remember where the BCRN building was, we could find it. But
I think
anyway,
it's
that's
right
one
off
of the,
off Third Avenue. It's on the north, it isn't on Third Avenue, but it's off of North-South Street. I guess it's a North-South Street. It's off a street, not an avenue.
okay. Well, that's enough. We won't waste more time doing that. Let me go back to where was I? Yeah. As you can see, I've collected a
Question
few
for you,
photos of,
Doug.
yes.
Like you got all these on your hard drive, do you back them up on like another source or?
I'm supposed to do that. I'm supposed to do that, yes.
Yeah, because
Um,
I've used like a flash drive to back them up and, because I'm always afraid the hard drive's gonna crash and then you're out,
Yes, I have done backups periodically through the years, and I have some external hard drives, and I have flash drives. I haven't backed this one up for a while, and I really need to do that.
Right, I
But
always
also,
get to do it, yeah.
yeah, but also because I now have an online storage with my OneDrive. Everything that's on this laptop is also on that internet storage facility. So I do have a backup in that regard.
You said it's like it's called OneDrive. Is that the storage type thing or what?
It's, I have a OneDrive, and I have several different ones where I've stored stuff online. But because I think I got a 1 terabyte storage with my Microsoft Office 365 program, and it automatically copies everything from my laptop to that storage. So, yep. So yeah, I like to think I have everything backed up, but of course we always know that that's not 100%. And I have
Right.
had computers crash on me. So, yep.
Yeah, I've had that happen as well. And another thing, like, I've been doing kind of by year or not year, but, subcategorizing them by year. And then the time of, like whenever I make a new folder, like, July of 2019. But, the hard thing there is, like, okay, what did I do in July of 2019? If I wanted to go
Yeah.
back and look at, so I've kind of been putting a little bit of subtitle with that as well. It might have been a trip that, like waterfall trip or something, or a depot trip. So then you kind of got an idea of what, okay, I want to find a depot, but I don't even know where to look, but if you've got it like,
Well,
like,
a real key that I've gotten into, and let me back out of this again, is that I now have set up a system for depots. I'll start with the town name, followed by the state abbreviation, followed by the word depot, and then the call letters of the railroad. So I know here in my Chicago Northwestern file, all of these should have Chicago Northwestern. Not everything is labeled like that. Like, here's a photo of Hamburg, Iowa, just says depot, but I do know this is a Chicago Northwestern town. I just don't have that up here, but I can go up here in the corner with this program I have, rename the file, and I can add the CNW just like that. And now it's labeled CNW depot. A lot of it, that's part of the organization, is you got to devise some sort of system that works for you. Some people
Right.
like to do by dates, others like to do by trips or travels or a particular railroad. For me, I've created this Iowa depot file, and I've got the sub folders for each railroad. So
well, that's kind of what I've been doing, is some subfolders within.
Yeah.
Because if you just do it by date, it's like, okay, I gotta look back through thousands of pictures to find the possibility of something I took in 2020, you know.
Yes. No.
Yeah.
Now
Not
we can
only-
talk about, the large railroads that what crossed Iowa, the CB&Q, the Northwestern, the Great Western, Rock Island, uh, the Illinois Central. You won't find any M and St. L photos in this set of photos because I have that in a different part of my computer. Because we'll go to that in a moment. But I also have within this Iowa depots, I have in pretty small railroads that maybe you've never heard of before. Here is the Atlantic and Southern Depot in Atlantic, Iowa. How many of you are familiar with the Atlantic and Southern?
Have no clue.
I don't see any hands going up. Tim is thinking he knows.
New to me.
I've read some stuff about it, but not much.
I learned about it when I lived in Villisca because at one time it came all the way down to Villisca and it disappeared in 1915 or something like that.
Yeah, it was early.
It was early, but I've come across a couple of photos. This is the depot in Atlantic. Now there's a larger image of it. Here's the one at Lyman. And that's it. I also have a little bit of a history. I don't have a photo of the depot in Villisca. Sometimes finding photos gets really hard to find. Now here's another one that's kind of fun, the Manchester and Oneida. How many of you are familiar with that one?
There's
That
been
was
a
a-
couple of things pop up on that recently.
Yes, it's a small railroad that was in eastern Iowa that interchanged it with the IC at Manchester, and I've collected, there's been a lot of photos of depots available. Here's a little bit of a map where you can see Oneida interchanged with the Great Western up here, and down in Manchester was with the IC on their Waterloo Dubuque main line. So it was just a small railroad. There's a timetable, but here's the creamery at Manchester. Here's a depot. There's an overall shot of the yard at Manchester. This is the Oneida Junction Depot in the 40s. Here's another shot of Oneida Junction with a Milwaukee train, of all things. It's just one of those little things I like to find and play with.
So how do you find some of these photos? Mostly online or?
Almost all these photos I've found online originally as the internet started to come in play and people were, searching the internet and they kept finding stuff. I had a friend who kept sending me things. They said, look at this, and he'd send me a photo of something. And then I realized that people were selling photos on eBay.
Right. I found that too.
Yes, and so early on, I set up several nights searching eBay for Iowa Depot, railroad depot photos, and just copied them. And then anymore with groups like this, there's a Facebook group now for Iowa depots that I'm active with. The fellow started about 2 years ago as COVID hit, and there have been tons of photos shared in that way. There are genealogy sites, town historical groups, railroad historical groups, and they all are posting photos anymore. Some of them you can find by searching specifically, others is just happenstance. And sometimes it's other sources of photos. As you can see, I have somewhat of a library behind me. And I don't necessarily scan out of books. I do that once in a while. But my library is fairly extensive. And I have a lot of stuff here. And I also have 3-ring binders of photos. Also, let's see, you got my microphone's all tangled up. Just a minute. I'm gonna try to move now. Or move it to camera. Some of the photos on, this is a book from where I grew up, Warren County, Iowa. And a local lady did a book, collected photos of all the depots, maps, little stories. Because it's a small book, I have since scanned all the photos and I now have them in my computer. So I can quickly find a photo of Wick, Iowa, if I want to. Today, as I was organizing, I was sitting here using some map programs. This is an atlas that has been put out. This volume covers just Iowa and Minnesota. It's Railroad Atlases of the United States, and it's 1946. And all the maps in here are hand drawn by the author. And let me just give you a brief sample of this. If I could, this is Ottumwa, Iowa. As you can see, he has drawn each railroad in a different color, labeled all the town's names, spots, etc. And there's like 150 pages of maps in this book. It just covers 2 states. He's slowly working his way across the country. This was not cheap. This was $75 for this particular book. And I don't think I'll buy the whole series, but for Iowa, it's just been invaluable because I modeled 1949, so a set of maps from 1948 is just perfect for me. So I also use official guides for finding depots and what railroads they were affiliated with. I've got, of course, I think many of us probably have something like this in our libraries, the Handley Atlases. I do have some of the newer ones that, of course, things like timetables I have sitting here, but that's, yeah, I find the photos all over the place, and I do have a good photo scanner, so I'm not opposed to scanning. I also have gone to libraries, and I'm going to do a quick search here. Now, if you can type right, this works well. I'm going to call up a photo here. You can see this is downtown Ames in 1920. But my notation says it's Grinnell number 14251, which means this was at the Stewart Memorial Library, the public library in Grinnell, Iowa. And I walked in there one day and I asked the librarian if they had any railroad photos. And she said yes, because I modeled Grinnell. And then she pulled out a folder and I said, could I bring my scanner in and scan these? And she said, well, I don't see any reason why not. So I went back to the car and grabbed the scanner and my laptop, and I spent about 3 hours scanning every railroad photo that they had in their collection in the Grinnell Public Library. This is one that shows a streetcar going down Main Street in Ames, Iowa. You can see the Chicago Northwestern Yard just over here to the far left side of the photo. So that's a source of photos too. And I've had fairly decent luck even in larger research libraries. They sometimes will let you bring in your scanner. I know the National Archives, they have now made provisions at their buildings in DC where you can bring in your scanner and do your own scanning of stuff. When I was there, that wasn't happening. That's been many years ago. I need to go back out there sometime. But some libraries, University of Iowa and their archives division, they won't let you bring in your own scanner, but they have equipment there. And if you have a flash drive, they will let you scan or copy and save it to your flash drive. And I found the same at Iowa State's library up in their special collections room, that they will let you, they have equipment so you can scan out of books. There was one, somebody was working recently on the Rock Island branch to the Cora, and asked me for some help. I had depot photos, but then I discovered the Iowa State Library had a book that had been written in 1978 on that branch line that had been self-published by someone. So I went over there one afternoon and they pulled it out and I said, could I scan it? Yeah, all 23 pages or something like that. I was able to scan the whole thing. And so now I have a copy of it. I've been able to share with the people who are working on trying to model that line, some ideas. They were able to get in touch directly with the author who was still alive, and he gave us permission to do that, which was great. So, but yeah, this is that's, and so a lot of my photos, I've got quite a few of them here that are labeled, they'll have that Grinnell designation. Here's the depot at Harcourt, Iowa. I'm pretty sure this is a Milwaukee depot because both the Milwaukee went through there and then also the interurban, the Fort Dodge, Des Moines, and Southern. So, but I think that's the Milwaukee depot. So that's just a example. Here is Hamburg, Iowa. This one I was able to scan at a nice high resolution. Here's at 100% of this photo. And you can see that some remarkable detail of what I was able to get from this photo. This is a nice early photo. Look at the large lettering over here on this gun. And of course the stand, the standpipe right there for filling the tender. You got somebody's buggy and a horse. You got a couple depot hacks over here. Nice good shot of the depot and the train order boards, the water taking the distance there. So
There's also a very interesting coupler on the pilot of that locomotive.
yes. Oops.
And there's a guy sitting on top of the water tank.
Yes, this is the CB&Q had these folding, you can see the hinge pin right there, where this coupler would fold up against the pilot and not be projecting out. Then it could be dropped down and held in place with a second pin or lock in case they needed to couple on to use the front of that engine for switching or something like that. So you'll see others that will have the fold down, and the streamlined engines on some railroads even have doors that close over the coupler. But, yeah, good eyesight, good catch there. So, but yeah, this is a CB&Q depot in Hamburg. Hamburg in recent years has been underwater at least twice with the Missouri River. So none of this, of course, exists anymore. Most of the town doesn't exist anymore. Here's the Keokuk Union Depot. It's been restored recently. Several different railroads use this depot, so it's hard to put into a specific file, though I do have it here, and that came out of the Grinnell library. So close
Doug,
that switch. Yes.
on Hamburg, it was the Nishnabotna that flooded, not the Missouri.
Was it the Nishna?
Yeah,
Because they sit right on the edge of the Missouri Valley.
yeah, they're still a good 4 or 5 miles from the river. So,
Okay. I won't argue with you. That's all right. I was over there one time helping with flood relief, and we basically were dealing with stuff down in the Missouri River Valley area. So
okay,
yeah. So another little, here's a much smaller railroad. This is the Waterloo, Cedar Falls, and northern interurban. I've been able to capture a few photos from this. There's the depot that sat in Cedar Falls. Some nice neon signs on that depot. There's another shot with one of their cars in front of it. This is the depot at Gilbertville, Iowa. So looks like that could almost be a really nice looking private home. Nice brick depot there. This is the one at Robbins, Iowa. And you can see this is probably an eBay seller. It's a curved photo. He didn't bother to scan it on a flat top scanner. He just took a picture of it with a camera or cell phone. I'll have to Photoshop that one someday. Of course, there's it says unknown, but we know that's Cedar Falls based on the other photos. Here's the one at Waverly. So that's the end of that file folder. What's interesting about the WCF and N is they are the railroad that actually worked the Rath packing plant. They were the ones that had direct access to the plant, not the IC as many of us would assume. It was the interurban that worked the packing plant, and that packing plant loaded, I think the record was 125 cars of packing house products in one day. So you can imagine that that little interurban was pretty busy. So I'll close out that file. Didn't mean to do that. Yeah, I want to open that new window, train pictures. So a lot of times people will just ask me, yeah, have you got a photo of? And I'll do a quick search on my computer and I'll do it. I've also accumulated some collections. This, for example, if you've been looking at freight cars at all on the internet, you've come across the name of Jim Sands, who lived in Marshalltown and took many railroad photos. But and I have acquired a good collection of his slides that was given to me a while back. But let's go to M. And this is just a scatter. This is Jim's photos from the Milwaukee. You can see a lot of them are upside down. For some reason, the scanning program, they did that, but they come up all right when I look at them. So if you're interested in Milwaukee diesels, I've got a bunch of them here. And these were scanned by a friend of mine, and they scanned out at a very nice, large size, so we can get a good look at some of these slides. So, and I do have these separated in an alphabetical order by subject, as well as some other things. So he also has quite a few, yeah, Chicago Northwestern, Chicago Great Western. And there are some depots in here. Now that I'm looking, let's look at it. There's Creston, Iowa on the CB&Q. This is the Hillsboro Depot that was moved up to old Threshers there in Mount Pleasant. This is the Yarmouth Depot at Yarmouth, Iowa. Also, I think at old Threshers. Yep, you can just almost make out the Yarmouth there above the Railway Express Agency building. This is Savannah, Illinois. Another shot of Savannah. And there's the roundhouse at Burlington. On the Burlington, so with the Mississippi River behind it there. So it gives you, and like I said, I was given a whole box of about 2,000 of his slides, and a friend scanned them for me. So I've accumulated and I share those. He did a big focus of his was, of course, freight cars in the yard at Marshalltown. So, including getting out whenever he heard the scanner go off. So I don't have all his slides. I wish I did. The reason I had asked for, because there was a particular image that I wanted. I did get it, but a fellow I knew was getting rid of them. So, and here's an idea of Chicago Great Western. Again, mostly diesels. A few other things scattered. Here's the roundhouse at Oline, for example, with all grown up with weeds. So let's see. And of course, as you know, I love the getting into subjects. Here's one we haven't done anything with, brick and tile. I've been collecting photos of brick and tile works. This is one in Mason City. This one's at Applington, Iowa. This one's in Auburn, Iowa. This is Lynn Grove, Iowa. You can see all the farm tiles stacked up there. Here's the kiln and chimney at Colesburg, Iowa. There's another shot of that. Here's the crew of workers at a brick kiln somewhere in Iowa, but I don't know where. Here's a worker moving a load of clay tile. That one's Portland, Maine. Here's one in Texas somewhere. So I find and accumulate stuff from everywhere. This is Capital City Brick and Tile in Des Moines. Sometime we'll have to do one on brick and tile, Greg. So anyway, I say it's now 7:15, and I've been pontificating for about 45 minutes, but it gives you an idea. I have a huge amount of photos. I have a large library. I have filing cabinets full of stuff, accumulated through 40 years of doing this, and I still don't know where everything is.
Well, that's great. Thanks, Doug.
Sure.
One question I had is, you have a lot of cross-referencing where one of these pictures might be in the section on depots, or maybe there's a boxcar there. Do you ever duplicate them, or do you just look both places and see where it's at?
I did that initially where I would copy a photo over to another directory, and then I realized I was using up my hard drives.
Yeah.
And so I just, when Microsoft and Windows changed originally you were limited to a file total of 8 letters plus 3 additional for the extension.
Yeah.
And I created all kinds of abbreviations for stuff. And then when Microsoft did away with that file name length,
Yeah.
that's when I started changing the names of my files and organizing more into folders.
Yeah.
So
you can just search for it.
right. So now if I find a depot photo that also has grain elevators or coal bins or a water tower, something like that, I'll put the name of the town, the railroad, the word depot, but I also type up in the title the word coal bins or water tower or whatever else is there. So when I do a search for coal bins, it'll pop up with the depot photos that have coal bins.
That's great.
Now there are software programs out there, and I had Ted Collado was showing me one that he really likes, a Lightspeed that Adobe Lightspeed that I think it is that they put out that works with Photoshop that he really likes. But I figured out how to do it for free, so I didn't want to spend money for a program I would have to keep updating. So
Yeah. No,
I do have Photoshop elements that came with my scanner. I've updated it a few times. My scanner is probably 15 years old or better, and Microsoft says it won't work with Windows 10. It works just fine with Windows 10.
Yeah, right.
You just have to ignore that it won't. You go ahead and install the software anyway, and it works fine.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So.
All right. Well, that's great stuff. That's really interesting to see how you've been able to do that. I think the volume of photos you have, the fact that you can do it just using the operating system basically is a good endorsement.
Well, and the other thing is that when they're in a directory, if say you want to program PowerPoint, a newer version of PowerPoint now has you can dump an entire directory into PowerPoint with a click of a couple buttons, and it will put each photo on a separate slide. If you want the title of the photo put on there, you click another box and it will put the title of the slide on there. And you suddenly have a PowerPoint program put together. You can do it. I can do it in 15 or 20 minutes. And then it's a matter of sorting through. I'll spend several hours sometimes sorting through or culling out miscellaneous or duplicates.
Right.
But that's how I put these programs together so quickly sometimes when you or Ron have asked.
Yeah. Well, we appreciate it. And
I got a question for you, Doug.
Sure.
Like when you're out just shooting general pictures, do you, like once you put them into the directory, do you like name each picture, or you just leave them whatever number the camera gives it?
Depending on the subject matter. Let me call up here quick. Here's a set of photos that I took in Emmitsburg, Iowa, and you can see I've just renamed them all Emmitsburg. They're not opening up, but it was mostly this oil jobber that I learned was there, and I wanted to get some pictures for a modeling project. So I just stopped there one day, took pictures on my way home from a meeting, and was doing just fine until the owner of the property came roaring up in his pickup and wanted to know what I was doing.
Right, been there, done that.
Yeah, when I explained to him I was just a model railroader, I was just taking some pictures to build a model, he settled down quite a bit. Apparently he'd been turned in a couple times to the authorities for leaks or something. He was sure I was from the EPA.
I know, that last week I was out taking a picture of a barn and I pulled off the side of the road and there was a guy who was pulling out of the driveway and he got out of his truck and come across the road and I thought, oh crap, here we go. And he says, hey, when I pull out, if you want to pull in the driveway and take all the pictures you want, I say, hey, I'm cool, thanks. But I know, when he was coming across the street, it was like, why the hell are you taking a picture of my barn, but.
Yeah.
Yeah, you gotta kind of watch sometimes getting on, property and stuff. and
Sure.
people-
For
or
a long time, I
side
was,
road People like, why are you taking a picture of my barn, or house or whatever it is, or
Yeah.
depot, it's like.
Yeah.
And usually, like you say, if you explain that, hey, I'm just taking pictures for modeling purposes or just general, they're usually cool with that.
yeah, for a while I was doing work for Railroad Model Craftsman, and Bill Schomburg he started calling me a contributing editor or something. So I made up some business cards one day with the Craftsman logo and my name and contributing editor with my address and phone number on it. And I carried those around with me. And if I was in a situation like that, I just pull out one of those cards. Ah, here. Now, oh, you work for a magazine? Oh, wow.
Right, yeah. Goes a long way, right, exactly. But I know here in South Bend, this was before they tore down the old NJI and I roundhouse. I pulled in there and I was taking a few pictures from the car, This guy comes running up and he says, you're not supposed to be here. I said, well, there's no fence or no nothing or nothing saying I can't be here. Well, this is CN, I think it was that's CN property. And you really need to, I just kind of kept talking to him as I was taking pictures and kind of, well, what are they gonna do with this building? Why are they just leaving it fall down, and so I ended up getting all the pictures I wanted, but yeah, he was, and I said, hey, there's nothing saying I can't, no trespassing signs or nothing here I could see, and just kind of kept talking to him and they finally, well, you probably really need to go. I'm like, okay, thanks.
Yeah.
But,
Well, you do need to know the rules. Photographers do have rights. You can
Right.
shoot from public places, things like that.
right,
And, from streets or sidewalks. But if you get on private property, you can be in a lot of trouble.
oh, yeah, and no, so I don't, like to go on private property, but
Mm.
that roundhouse was one of them you almost had to get any pictures of it because everything was so
Yes.
grown up around it, and it's now unfortunately tore down.
Yeah.
The historical sites tried to save it, but they couldn't. It was like a 2-stall, well, it was originally a 3-stall roundhouse, I think, that it ended up 2-stall with a workshop on the side, but I was sad to see that go, really, but.
Yeah, it's a shame. I've got up on the screen right now. This is another shot I took in Emmitsburg. The reason I stopped there was that I've been told that they still had some stock pens. And this was a loading chute, and somebody asked if I label things. Yeah, this is in that Emmitsburg directory, but notice that I've got it labeled as stock chute Rock Island, and I've got a couple images of it here. It was interesting because it had counterweights that raised the floor up if you wanted to do a double deck stock car.
Okay.
And so I took photos. It was basically was a hog buying station of some sort, and what was left of it there. And then I got back to but yeah, I labeled this the stockyard so I can find it easier. So yeah, sometimes you have to do
Doug?
that. Sometimes, yes.
Doug, what resolution do you scan at?
If I'm scanning I scan at a minimum of 300 DPI to 600 DPI, because for print publications like Model Railroad Craftsman, they want a minimum of 300 DPI for anything. There are times the scanner I have will do 12,000 DPI, and there's been times I have scanned that high of a resolution. If I got a critical photo that I've come across and wanted to find details on. If I'm scanning slides, it will let me do 1200.
Okay. Because I'm finding for the northwestern lines, we're scanning 1200 all the way up to 4800.
Yeah, a lot of it depends on what you want to use the images for and what.
Okay, thanks.
All right, well, thanks again, Doug, for an excellent presentation. And it sounds like we may do Belle Plaine, Iowa next week with Ron. So we'll look forward to that too. Thanks everybody for coming, and we'll see you
Yep.
next week.